We can't pick who our family is, but sometimes we luck out and we get a really good one. Today on rLounge, we see both sides of that coin. Up first, some siblings who didn't need a replacement mom. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my inheritance with my sister since she chose to be adopted? I, 30 male, lost my mom when I was 5. Despite being so young, I had very vivid and treasured memories of my mom and did not take to my dad dating a year after her death well. My dad recognized that he knew this would be hard for me, but said that as a parent adult, he knew what was best even if it didn't seem that way at first, and that he'd thank me in the long run. Not long after that, he married my stepmom, Lucy, and when I began to act out over it, my dad said that parenting alone was hard and that my sister, Jessica, 28 female, needed a mom. My dad even got my maternal grandparents to tell me that everything would be fine and how I needed to be a good boy. That was enough to get me to behave during the wedding, but once Lucy moved in and started redecorating, I started acting out again. My dad had had enough and just started punishing me whenever I acted out or made Lucy upset, as well as used the "Jessica isn't acting out like this." And to be honest, Jessica was easily pleased and wasn't alive long enough to have the same attachment to our mom as I did. It really upset me when Jessica started calling Lucy Mom, and it really ticked me off when Lucy started referring to me as her son. I always corrected it when she tried that around me. It got worse when I was 8 and Lucy had her own kids, because then my dad and her started pushing for adoption. Jessica, obviously, had no problems with it, but I refused. My dad had my maternal grandparents come in again and tell me that adoption wouldn't be that bad, but I still refused. Lucy and my dad pushed for the adoption anyway, but thankfully the judge listened to my feelings in a private room and denied it. After that, therapy started, but it didn't last, so they also tried the "since you don't want to be a part of this family, you don't get X, or you can't come and do Y." But I was too stubborn for that method to work on me. The only one who I felt was on my side was my paternal aunt, who kept sticking up for me whenever she'd see what Lucy and my dad were trying to do. So when I turned 18, I went straight to her. It was then I became a legal adult that my maternal grandparents confessed that they were never okay with the situation, but my dad threatened to keep me and my sister away if they didn't show support. I was furious. So furious that I had my surname legally changed to my mom's maiden name, as I wanted nothing to do with it, my dad, and only ever really talked to my paternal aunt. Fast forward to now, my grandma has passed away. Grandpa died in 2020. And according to their will, only their legal grandchildren is to split a $250,000 inheritance, and since Jessica is legally Lucy's daughter, all she got was a framed photo of my mom and a letter. Jessica doesn't think it's fair and thinks I should share, but I told her to get money from her legal grandparents. My aunt thinks I'm being a bit harsh. So am I the a-hole? ETA, because someone asked. It had been 2 years since the last time she'd spoken to either of my grandparents, while she frequently called and interacted with Lucy's parents. Jessica was never close to my mom's side of the family because she'd rather spend time with Lucy's family and or didn't want to hurt their feelings. ETA 2, again since someone asked. When Lucy moved in, she and my dad took down all of my mom's pictures and got rid of her things. I wasn't allowed to keep any pictures in my room, and I would catch heat if I tried to celebrate my mom's birthday, mourn on the anniversary of her death, and get punished if I didn't celebrate Mother's Day the way Lucy wanted me to. So yeah, she wasn't the saint of a woman who stepped in when my mom couldn't to me. ETA 3, because I'm starting to see the same thing. I don't blame Jessica for choosing to be adopted now. I am angry at her belief that she should get any money from my grandparents despite never showing any interest in having a relationship with them once she was 18 plus. They reached out numerous times, but she never bothered yet, has the belief that she's entitled to their money. That is what ticked me off. My mom had a sister who also had kids. I'm not getting the full $250K. No, I don't expect anyone from Lucy's side to leave me anything, nor would I demand Jessica to share. It would be completely hypocritical. Let's see what the community judges. Huge Put 8244 says, "Not the a-hole. Your grandparents had plenty of time to change their will. They used the specific term legal grandchildren for a specific reason, because they wanted you to inherit from them. They assume Lucy will inherit from her other grandparents, and she probably will. Or if your dad is still sore, you may be excluded from his will, and they wanted to make sure you were adequately covered." Logical Cost 4571 chimes in, "Not the a-hole. Interesting how she only wants to be a family now that money's involved." Yikes, OP. I'm sorry your father treated your mother's death that way, and to not allow you to keep a photo of your mother? That seems horrific. She was your mother after all, and that's something that can't be erased. At the same time, I think your sister was so young that she really didn't understand the position she was being put in, unlike you. and it's a shame that your father treated your maternal grandparents like that, and thus hindered the relationship for them and your sister. I think money makes people very selfish, and I think people become entitled when it comes to money. I don't think you're an a-hole for not wanting to share your inheritance. After all, it's yours, not hers. What do you think? Next up, a bride who took her day too seriously. Am I the a-hole for making my brother's wedding reception about me? I, 25 female, am a bridesmaid to the fiancé, 30 female, of my older brother, 31 male. She and I aren't particularly close, but I don't dislike her, and I suspect she asked me just because I'm my brother's sister. I of course agreed, and I was even fine with her putting me in whatever style she wanted so long as it didn't involve me cutting or dyeing my hair. Any major changes. It's not my day. I can suck up an ugly dress and act like it's gorgeous if that makes her happy. The issue, however, is that I'm a wheelchair user. I know that the wedding venue is fine for me as it's our local church. Totally accessible, so all good. It's the venue being used for the reception that worries me. I asked her where the reception was going to be and if it was accessible for me and had an accessible bathroom. Just covering my bases. She didn't get back to me. I figured she was busy, so I left it a week or so before chasing her up again to re-ask. She told me she wasn't sure, so I asked where it was, and she told me. I ended up looking at the building, and my heart sank. It is an old building, not accessible at all for me, and no bathrooms I could feasibly use either. I told her this, and she got very upset, saying my brother had told her that he'd cover the cost, and she should just pick whatever she loved, and that she loved this. She then went on to suggest that we could just have someone carry me into the building, and my family or other bridesmaids could help me use the bathroom when needed, which the very idea of mortified me. I'm not about to agree to being carried in and needing help to go to the bathroom. I ended up giving her two options. If she wanted me at the reception, she needed to pick somewhere that was accessible. If she didn't pick somewhere accessible, then I'd of course still be her bridesmaid at the wedding, but I'd have to skip the reception. She got upset at this, as she feels like everyone, especially my family, will notice my absence and question it, and it'll make her look bad. She then told me I was making this about me, which wasn't fair when it was her day. I won't lie, at this point I was enraged. I wanted to tell my brother to let him sort this, but I wasn't about to start crap between them over this, and I pointed out to her that yes, this was her day, and I had no intention of making it about me. However, by marrying my brother, she was joining our family, and she needed to realize that she was not as sensitive as she thought she was, and suggesting that I be carried into the building and aided going to the bathroom was downright insulting. This led to a larger fight, and she told me if my brother didn't already know I was her bridesmaid, that she'd not want me to be in it anymore. I called it quits at that point and told her she had my two options, and it was up to her what she wanted. Am I the a-hole here? I don't feel like asking for the minimum accessibility is a lot, but maybe I'm too upset by the situation and her suggestions to see it clearly. Here's some additional relevant comments. More about why she hasn't gone to the brother yet. That's the idea. I may have to talk to him about this. He is not at all inconsiderate, which is why I've been hesitant to get him involved, as I know with most people he'd get angry over this, and I don't want to start a fight with them. He likely assumed it was obvious that any venue needed to be wheelchair accessible. About the fiancé, I really hope it's not an indication of a cruel streak, as I don't want to think that of her. I'm really hoping it's just the stress of the wedding getting to her, but maybe I should bring it up to him before they get married to be safe. I will likely discuss this with my parents too, and get them to weigh in on this matter. More about the building where she lives. The UK, and yes, there are. However, historic buildings are a gray area, and so long as actual weddings aren't being held there, they don't have to be fully accessible. You're not the a-hole at all, OP. It's absolutely insulting to think that someone could lift you and carry you to where you needed to go, especially the bathroom. It's not right for her to expect you to be okay with that, and by you simply asking for accessibility isn't making the day or wedding about you at all. Update, March 28th, 2023, the next day. Hi everyone, here's an update to the situation. As many of you suggested, I checked in with my brother and told him what was going on, and I found out that the reason he'd left the reception to her was they'd made an agreement with him covering the ceremony and she'd cover the reception. We're Catholic, so he cared more about the religious side of the event while she cared more about the reception, party, as she's not religious, which isn't a bad thing, just different. I showed him the text and explained what had happened. He was pissed off at her suggestion I be carried into the building and assisted in going to the bathroom, and after only a quick search of the venue she'd picked, he could also see it wouldn't work out for me and promised he'd resolve this and have a talk with her. He was annoyed at me for not bringing this to his attention sooner and told me I shouldn't worry about his feelings over this. The best part of all this? The venue wasn't even booked yet. He had assumed she'd picked out somewhere accessible, but has admitted that he should have ensured that and not thought it a given. So he has told me he'll see it's changed, and if it isn't, they have a bigger problem on their hands. The part that really got to him, though, was the admission that she didn't want me as her bridesmaid if he didn't already know. And he told me in that case, he didn't want me to be her bridesmaid and instead wanted me to be his groomswoman, which I agreed to. I've yet to hear back from him on what's happening, so I can only wait and see. I'll update further when I know more. Here's some relevant comments again. Basically what she implied was that my brother had told her the sky's the limit and to not worry about price as he'd cover it so long as she loved it. I do think he likely just assumed it was a given that it needed to be wheelchair accessible as they've been together so long and she knows me. Another update, April 7th, 2023. 1.5 weeks from original post. This is an update to the post I made a few days ago. Here's the link. Thank you all for your comments and opinions over there. Sorry for the late update. A lot has been going on behind the scenes and I've been spending time with my brother in the aftermath, so have been busy. My brother's now ex-partner refused to reach a compromise on the reception venue despite days of arguments between the two of them, and apparently even demanded to know what mattered more to him, her having her dream reception or me being there, and she didn't like his answer to that question at all. Likewise, he was disgusted with her attitude and apparently this wasn't the only red flag, just the biggest one he'd been unable to overlook. For instance, she kept insisting on getting our mother's engagement ring early, which my brother didn't cave on, thank God. My brother is the oldest child, so was promised our mother's engagement ring that has been in the family for 4 generations. He made it clear to her that she'd get it once they were officially married and got her a cheap placeholder until then, but she'd apparently been kicking up a fuss about it every so often, trying to get him to cave. I was totally unaware of this until he told me. My brother apparently told her he loved her and he wanted to work through this with her, but they needed serious couples therapy before he'd go ahead with the wedding, even suggesting that I tag along for a family's therapy appointment to get to the root of her apparent problem with me, which she didn't take well, to telling him if the wedding was off, they were breaking up, but she told her that was her decision and he wouldn't fight her on it. So yeah, he's been hanging out at mine a lot, and I felt incredibly guilty over this crap storm, but he won't hear any apologies from me on saying it's better this came to a head now. He's also wanting to take me and our parents on a family holiday with the money he was going to use for the wedding, so he has something to look forward to. I don't want to say we're well rid of her, as I do think she'd had some issues that my brother was right they'd have needed to resolve in therapy to become a healthy couple, as she seemed to think there was some kind of competition for his affection going on. Anyway, that's where things are right now. I just thought I'd let you all know, as I know many of you were wondering about the aftermath. Oh wow, what a curveball. Sounds like this was a blessing in disguise. It sucks that it unfortunately had to come to this, but like your brother said, it's better that he found out about all of this now. Seems like he's been ignoring some red flags. Additionally, it's nice to see that you and your brother have the relationship that the two of you have together. You're his blood after all. Sounds like your brother's a good man, and I'm happy to see he didn't get trapped with a woman like that. Thoughts? Thank you for joining us today on Our Lounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, share that with us in the comments below.